Hello, listeners. Welcome to the third program in our series, Let's Learn Geography, which is produced for grade 8 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Ronald Krotz. Today, we are going to learn about the heating of the atmosphere. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can make notes of the important points. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Today's program will shed a little light on the different ways in which the atmosphere is heated. At the end of this program, you should be able to describe how the atmosphere is heated by the processes of insolation, terrestrial radiation, absorption, and convection. The Earth is made up of different layers. How do you think these layers receive heat?
I think the atmosphere is closer to the sun and is therefore heated by the sun.
I think so too.
Okay, well, that is an interesting way of putting it. In your social studies grade 7 syllabus, you learn that as you go higher into the atmosphere, it becomes colder, although you are going towards the sun. That theory will help us to understand how the atmosphere is heated.
So, is it wrong to assume that the atmosphere is heated by the sun, sir? I think you'll have to convince me on this one.
That is a very good question, Megan. Let's address it now. The atmosphere is heated by the heat from the Earth's surface, even though the sun is the source of the heat. The sun radiates heat in both long and short waves. The heat is radiated from the Earth in the form of long waves only, as the Earth's temperature is a lot cooler. Remember this. Radiation from the sun is called insolation. The insolation heats the Earth, and the Earth then radiates the heat into the atmosphere.
But how is that possible, sir? I don't understand.
Okay. Insolation or radiation from the sun that reaches the troposphere does not reach the Earth's surface. It is reflected, scattered, and absorbed before it reaches the Earth. The one that is reflected off the clouds and light-colored surfaces. The insolation that is scattered is insolation that is scattered back into the atmosphere by dust and particles, while some insolation is absorbed or taken in by the greenhouse gases and water vapor.
I still don't quite understand how that heats up the atmosphere, sir.
Okay, well, Megan, the Earth heats up the atmosphere in the following ways. 1. Through terrestrial radiation and also through the conduction and lastly, convection. Terrestrial radiation is when the heated Earth's surface radiates heat in the form of long waves. Certain gases in the atmosphere trap and absorb the long wave radiation given off by the Earth. This absorption causes the atmosphere to heat up. The Earth radiates all the heat it receives into the atmosphere. This is why it is the coldest in the early hours of the morning, because most of the heat it received has been sent back into the atmosphere throughout the night.
Okay, I get it now. What about conduction and convection? I'm not sure how they work.
Okay, well, conduction is the process that happens when heat energy is transferred from the warm earth to the layers of gas that are directly in contact with the Earth's surface. Convection is the process that happens when the heat energy is transferred by the movement of air molecules. The Earth heats up the air molecules by conduction, and this hot air rises, allowing cooler air to move in underneath. Once the cooler air gets heated, it rises and the cycle keeps repeating itself.
Wow, sir, that's all so confusing. But I think I understand now how the atmosphere is heated. Today is my turn to conclude the lesson, so maybe let me do it now. We have learned so much today.
Yes, it is your turn, Megan. Before you go ahead, do you learners have any more questions about how the atmosphere is heated?
No, sir. I think that was quite clear enough, right, Megan?
Yes, I think it was.
Okay, thank you. You can go ahead and conclude the lesson, Megan.
Today I have learned that the Earth heats up the atmosphere through terrestrial radiation, conduction, and convection. Terrestrial radiation is when the heated Earth's surface radiates heat in the form of long waves, usually during nighttime. While conduction, on the other hand, is the process that happens when heat energy is transferred from the warm Earth to the layers of gas that are directly in contact with the Earth's surface, and convection is the process when the heat energy is transferred by the movement of air molecules. The Earth heats up the air molecules by conduction, and this hot air rises, allowing cooler air to move in underneath. Once the cooler air gets heated, it rises and the cycle keeps repeating itself.
Wow, well done, Megan. And that will bring us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is your question for the day. What are the 3 ways in which the atmosphere is heated? Right, this is the end of the program. So, until next time, take care. From myself, Ronald Krotz, the program developer, Yul van Harde, and the Namcol production crew, it is goodbye until tomorrow. Take care.
This program was brought to you by Namcol with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.